Good evening, my name is Katarzyna Nowicka and welcome to Poland Daily News. Yesterday's parliamentary session was a show of truly bad manners in the Polish parliament. The quarrel began with the speech of the leader of the Civic Platform Party, Borys Budka, who interrupted the speech of Barbara Nowacka, who was giving arguments behind the motion to dismiss the Minister of Health. After that, the situation spiraled out of control.
It's doctors and nurses, employees of nursing houses who...
Excuse me, I have a request. It's a vote of no confidence against the Minister of Health. You should act accordingly. Sit down.
Proszę usiąść. Proszę usiąść. To nie jest pana format, panie prezesie.
Panie pośle Budka.
MP Budka, please sit down and calm down. MP Budka, I am asking you to remain calm. Mr. Speaker, this chamber used to have better standards.
This vote of no confidence is a farce and a scandal. Sit down yourself. It was you who got up first.
Panie pośle Budka.
MP Budka, I'm warning you for the second time. MP Nowacka, please continue.
Panu posłowi Budce. Pani poseł Nowacka, bardzo proszę kontynuować.
I haven't seen such rude rubble in a long time.
Panie marszałku, mam wrażenie, że pan poseł Kaczyński...
Panie Budka, niech pan siada.
Mr. Speaker, is it just me or did Mr. Kaczyński just call us a rabble?
Panie premierze, proszę.
Pan nie zrozumiał, jak zwykle.
Jarosław Kaczyński calls MPs a rabble, Mr. Speaker.
Pan poseł Rutnicki, proszę.
MP Rutnicki, please sit down and calm yourself.
Proszę usiąść.
Apologize to us. I will not stand being called a rabble.
I usiąść spokojnie.
Please stop this quarrel. I'm ordering a 5-minute break.
The funeral of the late Major Marian Słowinski took place today in Warsaw. He was the oldest soldier of the 1st Polish Armored Division of General Stanisław Maczek. Major Słowinski was a model soldier and a Polish patriot. He died at the age of 101.
Jeżeli chodzi o warszawskie reprywatyzacje...
The issue of Warsaw's reprivatization scandal cannot be summarized in this way. It cannot be concluded by the fact that this man, who stood on the side of the wronged and acted for the benefit of the inhabitants and the public interest, is being punished in such a severe way. Among other things, in addition to the paying of a fine, in addition to the payment of fees, an order has been issued that the judgment be made public as a criminal measure. The president, taking into account the principle of humanitarianism and other circumstances such as the principle of justice, has pardoned Mr. Śpiewak.
Te okoliczności, o których mówiłem, zasadę sprawiedliwości.
Thank you for this pardon, Mr. President. I've always stood by the people and acted in the interest of the public. Nevertheless, I am the sole person who has been convicted twice in connection with the reprivatization scandal. The Warsaw court named me a criminal for disclosing the role of the daughter of the former Minister of Justice in the illegal reprivatization of a tenement house in Warsaw's Ochota district. My trial was held in violation of elementary standards of the rule of law. The court's verdict undermined the foundation of democracy, freedom of speech, and the right to criticize the mighty of this world. Therefore, I use the path provided for in the Polish constitution. Today, justice has been served.
President Andrzej Duda pardoned Jan Spiewak, a city activist and whistleblower who contributed to the disclosure of information regarding the so-called wild reprivatization in Warsaw. In December last year, Śpiewak was sentenced to a fine for defaming the defender of Bogumiła Górnikowska-Ćwiąkalska in the connection with the reprivatization of one of Warsaw's tenement houses.
Wiedział, że niepodległość, którą wywalczyli jego ojcowie i dziadowie,
He knew that the independence that his fathers and grandfathers fought for was invaluable and worth giving up everything for, including his own life. When he fought alongside his commander, General Stanisław Maczek, he would wonder about the words spoken by the general, that a Polish soldier fights for the freedom of all nations and countries, but dies only for Poland. But when fighting in France, Belgium, and Holland, he did not only fight for Poland to be free, for Europe to be free, but he also fought for this whole world of values that were trampled by German and Soviet aggression in 1939.
Poza tym jednak, że był on żołnierzem.
Apart from being a soldier, he was also our uncle, Uncle Marian, an uncle with a great sense of humor, who was able to draw the most beautiful star in the world, and with a desk full of fascinating trinkets. He was also a great friend of the youth. He was always happy to visit schools where he talked to children. He was the most eager to choose these so-called naughty students. He would sit right next to them and tell his stories in such a way that even the greatest troublemakers would listen with fascination.
Największe rozrabiaki słuchały z uwagą.
The ripple effects of the killing of George Floyd in the United States are starting to make their way over to Europe as well. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte has now stated that he has changed his position on the Dutch Christmas tradition of Zwarte Piet, a black character who aids Santa Claus in giving sweets to children. The Dutch Prime Minister states that he now wishes for the tradition, which is accused of portraying so-called blackface, to disappear.
Speaking in a parliamentary debate about the anti-racism protests in the Netherlands held in solidarity with US demonstrations after the killing of George Floyd, Rutte stated that his view had changed since 2013 when he said Black Pete is just black and I can't do much about that. I've made great changes there myself about Black Pete. I also belonged to the group that said Black Pete should be all black. I've told it here before. The moment I met little children with dark skin who told me they felt incredibly discriminated against because Black Pete is black, that's the last thing you want at a St. Nicholas party. But the other way around, if the government were to force to never allow that Black Pete be black again, if we were to decree that Black Pete is no longer allowed, then you know that there would be a reaction from a lot of people who love that tradition. The tradition is changing over time. In a few years, there will hardly be any Black Petes, I expect. It's a folk culture that changes over time under the pressure of social debate, and people don't want that pain. But there are also people who say they don't want to be forced to let go of that symbol because they don't consider it as discriminating or racist at all. That is what makes this discussion so nuanced and so complicated. In the Dutch tradition, Santa Claus brings gifts to kids accompanied by Black Pete, a clownish servant usually portrayed by a white person in black face paint wearing frizzy wigs and red lipstick. While critics say Black Pete is offensive, a shrinking majority of white Dutch people argue that Pete is a magical fantasy figure not portraying any race. The debate about the character's future has been raging for years. Protests honoring Floyd were held in Amsterdam and Rotterdam this week, with plenty more scheduled for this weekend.
That's all for tonight. Now on to Poland Daily Business with Aleksander Wierzejski and his guest. Good night.